Hello everybody. Today I'm out at Mars Hill, or at least down at the base of it. There's a couple trails that go up to the top, and that's what we're going to be exploring today. Currently it is pretty sunny-ish, and the wind is attempting to blow my bike away. I'm going to finish getting all my camera gear set up and then hit the trail. Wind is actually fairly typical of Flagstaff as we roll into summer. We usually get like a really windy portion, and then it all gets nice and hot. I have a few reasons for why we're going to look at some less technical trails today. First, my bike is in the shop and I'm riding my dad's hardtail today, so I didn't want to tackle anything seriously techy on that bike. The second and more important reason is that I want to start making videos that are designed to get people on bikes that are of all skill levels, not just people like me who ride techy, gnarly trails. Even though life has yet to return to a more normal state, I want to start showing viewers some of the easier trails that are available for use when we can finally get back out. As you saw, I parked across the street from the trailhead and then crossed the road and headed up the FUTS trail called Mars Hill. It is marked on the map as a green trail, which means it is a flat, wide trail that is designed for casual walkers, not just hikers and bikes. All of the FUTS trails are like this. They're nice and wide for lots of people to use them. The only difference is some of the ones in the more urban areas are usually paved, whereas these are just sort of packed dirt. Mars Hill took me about halfway up the climb before I got to a fork in the trail. I'm at where the Observatory Mesa trail and a couple other trails come together. So I'm gonna go explore a trail called Tunnel Springs Mesa, or Tunnel Springs Trail. Anyway, it goes up that way. I took the left fork, which took me even further up the hill. According to my map, the right fork is slightly uphill, and it goes through a natural area that the city set aside a few years ago. At the top of Mars Hill is Lowell Observatory, where Pluto was discovered in 1930. They have a huge telescope built there, along with a museum and a visitor center. These trails do not reach the observatory, but there is a road on the other side of the hill that does go up to the top. I continued to climb for another half mile or so, and then the trail leveled out. At the end of Mars Hill, you can either go straight or turn right. If you go straight, the Tunnel Springs Trail drops you down into the neighborhood of Railroad Springs. I took the trail leading right. This is called the Observatory Mesa Trail, and it is rated as a blue trail, which is one step above a green. Most of the trails in the previous videos have been on blue trails. One thing I always try to keep in mind is that even though I try to ride when there are fewer numbers of people outside, I'm not the only trail user out there, so even though I wanted to go flying down the hill to the bottom, I've tried to keep my speed low and not come up on anyone by surprise. This strategy paid off because there are a lot of people out on the trail that day, and I was glad I had enough time to slow down and move to the side for them. The trail that I turned onto has a downhill grade that is just steep enough to make it fun to go fast without having to pedal too much. The grade stays pretty much the same until about a quarter mile until the end. Then the trail drops quickly through a short, punchy section. It starts off with a narrow chute that I had to watch my pedals on. There were white marks on the rocks where other riders had scraped their pedals. After that, you have a brief stretch of trails studded with rocks to set up for the other chute. This one is not as narrow as the first, so it's a little less crazy to ride down. After that punchy section, the trail continues to drop down, and eventually I ended up in the middle of a neighborhood. The FUTS segment that I followed back to my car is one of the better segments in the system. I had to ride a little bit to get to the trail that would take me back to my car, but the trail led me almost right to the parking area. This particular FUTS trail follows the Rio de Flag and goes through an urban area. A lot of the people who live on that trail have direct access to the trail that can take them from their backyard to a fun hiking or biking spot, and in the other direction onto a small pond that is a popular spot for locals to go fishing. You can follow it pretty much anywhere in Flagstaff, and it is not just sidewalks along a road. The system goes through some really cool scenic areas, and it only took me about 2 miles to get back to my car. Even though the baseball fields were closed, they left the walkways open, so I cut back through there to get to my car. Once the public transportation system opens again fully, I'll make a video about the bus system we have here in town. It's pretty awesome. I hope you liked this video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.